live session.
Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We have another fantastic episode. We are in the semifinals of Fantasy Football, Week 16. It all begins tonight. Patriots, Rams and Saints. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of football. Basically, 4 of the next 5 days we have football, which is fantastic. So there's a lot it's the best. And there's a lot of things to go over tonight, guys. Of course, Coach John is here. What's going on, Coach John?
Nothing much. Beautiful day. Get to hang out, help people set their lineups for a huge weekend of football.
Agreed. Definitely so. Coach Gibbs, I hopefully will be here soon, but we want to get things started tonight and start talking about Week 16. So news-wise, if you've been following the news today, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of players in and out because we're hearing reports early on. Again, nothing's official for some of these players, but C.J. Stroud likely is not playing this week. You got Zay Flowers returning to practice. Odell Beckham did not practice on Thursday. You're looking at Jonathan Taylor returning, Michael Pittman returning. Keenan Allen has already been ruled out. Tyreek Hill back on the field. Love that for fantasy. That's what we've been looking for. Kenny Pickett is out this week. Jamar Chase is out. James Cook is expected to return back to practice today. Chris Godwin not seen at practice today. So there's a lot of people coming in and out. Obviously, tomorrow is when we hear the big injury updates on a lot of players. But the Saturday games, we're finding out no Jamar Chase this week. Hopefully, it looks like Tyreek Hill will be back. So I know I had a league last week. Thankfully, I had a bye week, but I had a league at Olave, Jamar Chase, and Tyreek Hill. So getting 2 of the 3 back will be very big for my fantasy week. So, but yeah. So this is our start and sit show, guys. And for the most part of the season, we've been doing it, breaking it down by game. And I figured, last few weeks of the season, let's try something else. Let's see how it works. And we're going to go for there. So instead of doing it game by game, breakdowns, who should you start and should you sit, we're going to break it down by position. And we're going to group players together, players that are must starts, maybe borderline, players you should avoid at each position. And we're going to go to the motions. We're going to talk about some of these groupings, whether or not they belong there, whether or not we trust, have concerns, things like that. So we're going to get started and get you guys as much fantasy information as possible tonight. So we're starting here with quarterbacks for Week 16. And these are the must-start quarterbacks. And a lot of these rankings are based off consensus Fantasy Pro rankings. I've mixed in some of my rankings in here a little bit based on some of the players where I believe they go. So, Coach John, maybe Coach Gibbs haven't seen a lot of this yet. So we do have a question in the chat. Maybe no. Hello, Albert. Welcome into the chat.
Hey, Albert.
Appreciate you joining in. So the first tier here, I don't know if it's want to call it a tier, but the first part of must-start quarterbacks for Week 16. Basically, you should probably starting these quarterbacks for the most part. And maybe you guys don't agree, but we're going to break it down and talk about some of these players here, John. So I think we can agree for the most part that the top 4 on the top 2 on both sides here are probably must starts. Hurts, Allen, Jackson, and Mahomes. I think you're starting them no matter what. Is that true? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, you would have to be the only one that I would. Mahomes is someone that, you'd have to be pretty crazy Week 16 to switch off of. But I get the argument that he hasn't had big upside games. But he's still, to me, a must start because he's talented. He's got a floor. And I'm not willing to throw in a Joe Flacco or a Jake Browning over him, but I get that some people might be tempted to. I'm still going to the well, but Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they're all, and even Brock and Dak, they're all must starts in my opinion.
So you believe Brock Purdy is a must start, even against?
Yeah, I think he absolutely is. He's proven when he has all of his weapons healthy, he can produce, and he can, will there be games that, Christian McCaffrey scores on the ground 2 times? Yeah, but Christian McCaffrey's also could score through the air for him. Debo could take a slant to the house. Ayuk could hit a big play. I mean, Brock Purdy is, when he has his weapons at his disposal, he's been a quarterback one. So I'm totally comfortable with Brock Purdy.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. So for me, guys, like this list is pretty good. I think for the most part, most of these quarterbacks are starting. I do have a couple concerns with Justin Fields coming back from injury. He's kind of been up and down for fantasy. He plays the who did the
Arizona Cardinals. That's
Cardinals.
The only reason why
That
I
is
think
the
Fields
big
is a must
reason.
start. Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a good reason to start him.
Play the Vikings and the Browns so far this year, and he's put up mediocre performances. And then he played the Lions 2 times, which was a fantastic performance for quarterbacks. So that's kind of why he's in this must-start category, because we've seen the Cardinals, how bad they are in defense. So Justin Fields should probably almost, without question, be in starting lineups. Mahomes, for me, it has to be a must-start. I think there's a couple players you could consider that are in that next few tiers. Like a Baker Mayfield is someone I'm struggling with because Baker has such a great matchup this week against the Jaguars. Even Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you probably don't have both, but Baker Mayfield is a pretty interesting situation because he's coming off a fantastic game, and you have Mahomes right now. It's like he's averaged the last 3 games he's been under 20 fantasy points. It's tough to want to consider him a must start, but the talent has to be there. He's playing the Raiders. He finished with 24 fantasy points last time he played the Raiders. This time they're at home. He's always played better at home games than he has on the road this season. So, I think you have to, if you drafted Mahomes in a top pick, I think you almost have to start him. I mean, I don't know. What would you consider? Baker? Would you take a shot on Baker, or would you just stick with Mahomes?
It's so funny that you asked me that question because I am in a league where I have that exact lineup decision to make, where I have Patrick Mahomes and Baker Mayfield. Right now, I have Patrick Mahomes in the lineup. But, that's, if all of a sudden Chris Godwin comes back, he's totally healthy. I don't, the Jags matchup is scary, but not impossible. Baker has, put up some decent games. I mean, just hung 30 on Green Bay. So you could make a case. It's really close. I would probably still go with Mahomes just for the security of the floor. I think that, you're not going to get a single digit game from Patrick Mahomes. You could get that from Baker. But on the flip side, I also don't think you could get a 30-point game from Mahomes, and Baker just did it this past week. So it's interesting. It's team makeup. It's, decisions that you have to make. But gun to my head, I have Patrick Mahomes in my lineup. So I'll stick with Patrick Mahomes. But it's a great question because I've been toying over that one for the past 48 hours.
as am I. And I'm so concerned to make the wrong choice because Baker, has been up and down this season. He has some great games in him, but Mahomes, whether or not Mahomes has been not himself that he's usually is, he's put up at least, for the most part, 17, 18 points, which for fantasy, and if you're looking for something consistent, that's consistent as it gets. It's not great, but it's average at best. So I think I might actually lean towards Baker, and I think I'm going to start Baker this week over Mahomes. Again, I understand if you want to stick to Mahomes. He's Mahomes. You draft him the high pick. You should probably go with him for the most part. But what my team is doing, I think I might lean Baker on this one. So,
and to be honest with you too, I think, and this is just a side note, Isaiah Pacheco coming back, I think actually it helps the offense for Kansas City, but it hurts Mahomes' touchdown upside because Pacheco is going to rush it in. He's not going to throw it. So that's actually making me nervous too now.
He didn't throw it. Well, he didn't throw it this past week. He didn't throw it this past week either. So Jeremy passing. So this is the next tier here. The next area, the borderline QB1s. These are all quarterbacks that have great upside. Mm-hmm. They all do. They can all make a case for 7 of these quarterbacks, but they all have some kind of question marks to their game. Obviously, Tua's been up and down. Jared Goff's been up and down. Stafford has a tough matchup tonight, but he's been on fire. Trevor Lawrence is dealing with an ankle injury. Kyler Murray really hasn't been himself. Baker is Baker. And Jordan Love, do we completely trust him as a fantasy quarterback right now? That's tough. And then here we go. Perfect time to bring in a question for this grouping here from Albert. Stafford tonight or Jared Goff this weekend? Stafford obviously plays the Saints. Goff plays the Vikings.
I would go with Jared Goff just solely based on matchup. And also the fact that Thursday night footballs historically are a little bit more lower scoring, slower games. They're not usually sort of firework shows. And I don't think Rams or Saints will do that. I think both defenses I mean, Saints defense is obviously great. I think the Rams defense is coming into its own. Derek Carr can do disappearing acts, and this could be a 24 to 21 type of lower scoring game. I just don't know if there's, Kyron Williams is going to struggle to find room against the front seven, but anytime they get near the goal line, he seems to have a nose for the end zone. I think it just could be tough. On the flip side, Jared Goff playing against Minnesota, to me, it's just a much softer matchup. Nick Mullins can move the ball. They could get into a higher scoring affair. So I'm willing to go with Jared Goff. I know he has some disappointing games as of late, but I do trust that the matchup, and I do trust the Lions in a divisional game to really put up a huge fight.
I respect it. Yeah. So I'm actually going to lean on the other direction there. I think I might lean Stafford tonight. Honestly, I like what Stafford's been doing. He has been on fire. The return of Kerryon Williams has really bumped up this offense here. They have a more balanced approach, which I think defenses are struggling to stop Kerryon Williams on the ground, which I think has helped Matthew Stafford be able to see more one-on-one coverages downfield with his wide receivers. And he's got a fantastic duo in Puka and Cooper Kupp. And I think I might just roll with the hot hand with Stafford. I know Goff's coming off a 5-touchdown game, but Goff has really been up and down for me this season. And Stafford, last 4 weeks has been terrific. So I think I'm going to roll with that. They're, I believe, at home this week here, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check my thoughts on this one.
Rams?
Here.
No,
the Rams. They're at the Rams.
In New Orleans.
No, they're at the Rams. No, pretty sure they're at the Rams.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm reading that wrong.
So
yes,
home game.
Right.
I'm going to go with Stafford on this one here. So in this ranking here, is there someone that really concerns you that you might want to lean away from this week?
The two would be Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence. I think both Kyler and Trevor make me nervous. Trevor Lawrence really hasn't had any explosion games. He's been solid of late. He's been serviceable because the first 6-7 weeks he was useless. So, but the injury concerns me. He's going into the week banged up. He comes out of the game banged up. He's just, not going to be 100% with his ankle and his concussion or whatever he's got going on now. Zay Jones might not go. He's losing weapons all over the place. So I'm a little anxious with Trevor Lawrence, obviously. And Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray just hasn't performed the way we expect. He hasn't looked good. He's not on the same page with some of his receivers. Outside of Trey McBride, there's really no one I can trust for him to throw the ball to. So, and Kyler's calling card was always rushing and escapability, and he just hasn't really shown us that since coming back from the injury. I think Kyler's still a good quarterback. I think it's same with Trevor Lawrence. But when you get into the playoffs and you need this week, I need you to win me this week. I don't trust those two guys to go out there and, put up a 20+ point game, which is what you need from your quarterback. You need 20 points from your quarterback to be competitive.
I respect that. I respect that. The Kyle Murray is definitely a concern for me this week. I don't want to play him if I can. Trevor Lawrence, he's not my number one option, but he's still worthy of a play this week. Personally, to me, he's got a good matchup against the Bucs. Jordan Love does scare me a little bit this week here. He plays the Panthers. Panthers have been fantastic on defense this season. They haven't allowed a lot of passing or fantasy production to two opposing quarterbacks this year. And, he has upside. He's been playing very well over this back half of the season. But for me, I've turned away from going after Jordan Love this week in lineups, and I'm okay with that because I think this could be a game where Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, if he comes back, have a really good game this week where Jordan Love kind of, he might have 250 passing yards, but the touchdowns are very minimum for him. So I got a question from Steven. I like the name there. I could use some thought. I need to sit one in my 2-week PPR championship series this week. Do I sit Aaron Jones, Breece Hall, Kerryon Williams, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, or DK Metcalf?
Ooh, boy. It would be between Aaron Jones and Brees Hall for
Yeah.
me, and I'd probably sit Aaron Jones.
Okay.
Yeah, it's between those two, and to me, it's honestly though it's a coin flip between those two guys. I just still, I just like the. I don't know how much really explosive. Both guys aren't going to look great on the ground. They never had, like Aaron Jones in his career never really has. He's always been sort of that pass catcher style.
I think if Zach Wilson plays, I'm okay with Brees Hall. If Zach Wilson doesn't play, I don't really want to play Brees Hall.
Yeah, it's a good call. If you're getting Trevor Siemian or whoever,
I don't want Trevor Siemian with Brees Hall.
Yeah, whoever they're rolling out. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess that would be a big factor for me too. So keep an eye on that. But it's between those two guys.
Yeah, take a coin flip with Jones or Hall. But for me personally, it would be Hall if there's no Zach Wilson, which I don't think there might be this week. So
I can't imagine.
And AJ Dillon. If AJ Dillon plays too, yeah, I don't know how much I want to start Jones either. So coin flip it, Steven. I think either way you should be okay with either. So all right. So those quarterbacks here. Now we have the Superflex quarterbacks. So if you play more in a Superflex league here, these are the guys you're starting likely as your QB2 unless you do have a really good Superflex team. You have the Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Nate Mullins, Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco, Jake Browning, and Derek Carr. These are the Superflex quarterbacks here. Is there one that you're trusting more than the other ones?
Trusting is a tough one. I like Mullins. I think he has potential. Justin Jefferson goes, it's even better. Looks much better that way. Russell Wilson he's just got an offense problem. They're fine, but I don't see him throwing multi-touchdowns. So that's a tough go. And then Gardner Minshew is set up, at Atlanta. Atlanta's hapless, and he can score on them, and if no Jonathan Taylor and no Zach Moss, how much work are you really going to give to Trey Sermon? I think that those two guys, to me, Nick Mullins and Gardner Minshew, are two that I would trust the most out of this group.
All right, I like it.
Yeah, that's the two I would pick.
Yeah, this grouping, it's tough to want to consider most of these guys for one QB league. You have to really be in a bad situation. Like I'm in a bad situation. I had Justin Herbert. I had CJ Stroud. Now I'm starting Nate Mullins this week. Not the ideal situation, but that's how quarterback goes in fantasy this year. But they are pretty safe Superflex quarterbacks. So if you have them as a QB2, they all should be pretty safe. I do like Geno Smith if he plays against the Titans this week. He has the offense to throw around with him. Again, I don't hate Nate Mullins. The Lions secondary has been just garbage this year, despite what happened last week with Russell Wilson. Joe Flacco has a decent matchup against the Texans this week here. So there's some decent play here for some guys here. I don't like Minshew and I don't like Russell Wilson as much this week. But they're decent, solid fantasy Superflex quarterbacks. Steven has another question real quick here. Lost Herbert. I know that pain. Do I start Mayfield, Geno Smith, or Stafford?
Well, we just talked about Stafford versus Goff. So I know you're on side Stafford.
Not over Baker. Not over Baker.
That's the thing. I don't know if I'm Stafford over Baker. I would pick Baker in that bunch.
I want to start Baker this week. I trust Baker over Stafford in that situation. All right.
Yep.
And then the last but not least, these are the danger quarterbacks. If you're starting any of these quarterbacks, God bless yourself. You have the Tommy DeVitos, the Sam Howell. Yeah, Sam Howell's dropped now. Aiden O'Connell, Easton Stick, whoever plays for the quarterback for the Jets. Tyler Heineke, Bailey Zappi, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Mason Rudolph. These are the danger quarterbacks. Bad situation to play any of these quarterbacks, even in Superflex leagues. Is there one that could stick out in Superflex for you as a QB2? Is there one that could potentially be like, all right, maybe I'll give him a shot this week?
Well, selfishly, I'm going to say Tommy DeVito because I have to start him against you in our fantasy coaches Superflex league. So hopefully Tommy DeVito pulls through. But I do like the matchup as well. Philly, you can beat him through the air. That is kind of how you do it. He's potentially getting Darren Waller back, which will help. Or he has Darren Waller back, so that helps. That's the one to me. And the other thing about you got to look at, Sam Howell, if he comes out and doesn't play well in the first quarter, he could get benched. Tyler Heineke could get the yank,
I don't think so. I think they're going with him this week, that he's going to start the whole game. I don't think they're going to just go back to Desmond. There's no point.
Yeah, fair. But, it's just at this point, you're at this level of quarterback. The last thing you need is that little bit of risk of, well, what if they even take him out? Like, I don't even want that. So I would probably say Tommy DeVito, I think. I mean, that's kind of Aiden O'Connell, maybe.
I didn't expect you to say more than one.
Tough matchup. Aiden O'Connell's a tough matchup against Kansas City. So I really don't want it. But Tommy DeVito is the only one out of this group that I'm like, yeah, I could see it. I could see it maybe an 18, like a high teens game from him.
Yeah, I could see that too. There's another guy that, again, don't really recommend it unless you're really in a bad situation. But Mason Rudolph this week here. Hate to even say his name, but it's Christmas. But the Bengals have been so bad in the secondary. They've allowed the last 9 quarterbacks at least 240 passing yards. They've allowed tons of touchdowns this year. It's not the most best situation, but if I had to pick a guy that I'm looking for off the street to help me out this week, it could be Mason. I won't be surprised if Mason Rudolph finishes at the top 18 quarterback this week. That's how much I kind of believe in his potential this week. I wouldn't be that surprised. So again, a lot of these quarterbacks you're not really starting. Kyle Heineke's okay. Sam Howell's kind of okay. Tommy DeVito for sure. And then maybe Mason Rudolph, maybe Aiden O'Connell. But outside of that, not trusting any of these other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
All right, over to the running backs now. These are safe RB1s. They should be in your lineup without pretty much any thought. And you're looking at CMC, Kerryon Williams, Alvin Kamara, James Cook, Rachaad White, Joe Mixon, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Raheem Mostert here. Now, again, for the most part, you should be starting all these guys. I mean, is there anyone that you would say is the bottom, the last of this tier for you?
Who's
the last guy in this list?
The last guy on this list is probably Joe Mixon, but he's still a great start. I mean, he's still a low end one. So I'm fine starting him. But he's the only one that I would be out of this whole group, I'm not thrilled. You obviously you start him if you have him, but doesn't have the same upside that some of these other guys have. Obviously Kyron, CMC, Raheem Mostert, James Cook just went bananas last week. Alvin Kamara is going to catch 15 balls tonight. Jahmyr Gibbs is one of the most explosive players we've seen of late. These guys are all superstars.
Yeah, they're the top tier of fantasy right now. They're all playing very well. And then no one really has a bad matchup. Rachaad White does, but he can get his value in the passing game.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara, has a bad matchup on the ground, but again, he gets his value from the passing game. For the most part, these matchups are pretty good. And you should be able to roll with any of these 8 running backs this week in fantasy. So.
Mm-hmm.
This is the list that might start asking question marks here. The RB1 upsides, all these running backs on this list here: Tony Pollard, Bijan Robinson, Derrick Henry, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, and Aaron Jones. They all, I think, have RB1 upside, but they're not RB1s right now. They're not playing consistently as RB1s at this time frame of the season, whether or not they did it before a couple of months ago. They're all questionable in terms of their play. Now, which of these guys, let's say, give me 2 guys you really like out of this bunch this week in fantasy.
2 guys I really like is Travis Etienne. I like Travis Etienne. He's still been good. The touchdowns just haven't gone his way. So I still think he's safe. I like his volume that he's getting. There's no one else really as a threat in that backfield to him. So he's going to get plenty of work. Hopefully he gets in the end zone, and you'll be very, very happy with him. The other one I like is Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco's, when he's healthy, runs hard. Kansas City can't really do anything else on offense. So I'd be comfortable starting both of those guys. And then, there's, you're praying with some of the others, but it could pay off. It could absolutely pay off,
No, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. For me, Isaiah Pacheco falls to me in this list in terms of he's back on the field. I want to play him in this matchup here. Raiders run defense has been terrible this season here. He did very decent against them last time. I want Isaiah Pacheco in lineups. Derrick Henry's another guy that I know bad week last week. It's hard to trust him, but he's got a matchup against Seattle. They're terrible against running backs this season. They allow a ton of rushing touchdowns this year. And it looks like that Ryan Tannehill is going to be playing this week. So I think, if anything, that's going to help the offense out a little bit in terms of having a guy like Ryan Tannehill on the field, which I think can help Derrick Henry have a much more efficient game. They're crowding the line of scrimmage. They're forcing Will Levis to make the throw, which I don't think defenses will do that as much with Ryan Tannehill. They won't force him to make a good throw because he will make a good throw. So he's another guy. We do have a question in the chat here real quick. Hey, guys, I won my first playoff game. Congratulations. Love that. Go. I need 2 flexes. Who should I start? Josh Palmer, Ty Chandler, Javonte Williams, Christian Watson, and Zeke Elliott. Which of these 2 would you want to start?
Ty Chandler is definitely in for me. I don't know, probably not Josh Palmer, just because I know that Keenan Allen's out. But I just don't think that Easton Stick and that offense, they looked so inept. And Joshua Palmer, outside of that one play, really wasn't doing much.
He's got a tough matchup against Buffalo.
No
Christian Watson. I don't want to play that.
Yeah, Christian Watson still kind of battling back from injury. I'm not in love with that. So then you're down to Zeke or Javonte. And
Zeke, a bounce back from Zeke this week. So
Zeke is a good bet. Zeke is a good bet for a bounce back. I do think that he's gonna get all the volume. He's gonna get all the work. I think Zeke is a good bet for a bounce back. Javonte Williams has been fine, but again, I think I just get nervous. I'm still not bought into Denver, and maybe that's shame on me. But I just think
they haven't really done much on offense. They're playing smart football and they're playing good defense. That's what they've been doing. So,
and their offense is very one-dimensional, and it's easy to stop when you're one-dimensional. And I do think that when things go well, it looks fine, but you can unlock that pretty easily. So I would be with Ty Chandler and Zeke if it was me.
Ty Chandler and Zeke for me too. All right. Bijan Robinson, are you playing Bijan this week? If you haven't, do you have to just start him, or are you looking at let me give you a peek of next game here. Now, are you looking at maybe going after a Devon A-Chain, a Zeke Elliott, a Chuba Hubbard over Bijan Robinson? All 3 of those guys have pretty good matchups besides A-Chain. Would you consider one of those guys over over Bijan Robinson?
So probably not Zeke.
Okay.
Probably not Zeke. And probably not Chuba.
All right. I respect it.
But I would maybe.
What about Aaron Jones?
No, I still would play Bijan. Indianapolis is a bottom 5 run defense. I do think that you have to sometimes look at games we look at games as outlier games, and I do think that Bijan usage, that Bijan game last week was so impossibly out of the norm. You're giving the guy 50% of snaps. Like, this is crazy. It's crazy. And I don't know. It's tough because Arthur Smith you would think someone playing for their job would want to use their top weapons, and he doesn't, which is just crazy to me. But I do think that Bijan Robinson's talent, I do think he's good enough to make, even if you give him 60, 70% of snaps, we're going to see, Tyler Algier and Patterson a little bit more than you like. But I do think Bijan's good enough to make something happen. I don't know if, Chuba Hubbard is really good enough to make something special happen.
All right.
That's kind of my place. But it's close, but it's totally close. I do get it. It's the similar argument with Derrick Henry too. Derrick Henry just had an impossibly bad game. I don't think that that's prescriptive of the future, right? I just think that that's, you're just oh shit, he had a really bad game. There's nothing I can do about it. You got to just take that and move on. And I feel the same way with Bijan. It was an impossibly bad game. I can't believe he was negative points. That's crazy. But I do think he's talented enough to overcome the terrible usage.
I respect it. Yeah, I think you almost have to start Bijan Robinson, unless you really do have someone that has good upside in a matchup this week here, unless you have some of these top tier players. You have three of these top tier players on your team and Bijan Robinson. You're almost forced to start him because you have to take that shot that, all right, bad week last week. He's got to bounce back. He's got a great matchup. You got to run the ball this week here. Use your rookie running back here. Hopefully he doesn't fumble again. Hopefully that wasn't the cause of his sitting this week here. Got to get him back in action here this week. Again, for the most part, you want to start a lot of these players on this team here. Like Tony Pollard does scare me. Bijan does scare me. Hall and Jones do scare me a tad, but they all have upside in fantasy. And if you're looking for upside, this is where you look for upside for week 16. All right. Solid RB2 players that, that are good players. They're all good players. They do have question marks to their game. And we're looking at the Zeke Elliott, Devon Achane, DeAndre Swift, Dave Montgomery, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor is probably back. So Zach Moss probably goes away, but it's Jonathan Taylor, Ken Walker. Oh, there's Jonathan Taylor on my list. Chuba Hubbard, James Conner, and Brian Robinson here. Of this grouping here, is there players that you prefer to stay away from this week?
To stay away from? Yeah, I'd be shying away from Brian Robinson. I don't love sort of, coming off injury. I don't love the situation of the Commanders right now. They're going to, you got Sam Howell, you have question marks at quarterback. They might make a switch. So I don't love the Brian Robinson play this week. And Chuba Hubbard, same thing. I don't love this offense. I don't love what's happening in Carolina. He's good, but he's not like, world beater of talent. So it's just, you're going to get 17 carries for 52 yards and maybe a score. It's like, all right, that's, if he doesn't score, you're dead in the water. You got 8 points. And so it's like, I don't really love that. But I do, you know what I'm saying? Like there could be a way Devon Achane has a big day. There's a way Ken Walker has a big day. There's a way Montgomery and Swift have big days. I just don't see a way where Brian Robinson or Chuba Hubbard have big days. Like you're putting them in there and you're hoping for 8 to 10 points. It's like that to me is not what you do fantasy playoffs. I'd rather Devon Achane go out there and maybe he gives me 6, maybe he gives me 30. It's like I'd rather that,
It's been a while since that.
It's been a while, but it is possible. Like David Montgomery, like if anyone on this list is going to have 2 touchdowns, David Montgomery could have 2 touchdowns. Like it could happen. So, that's the kind of mindset you need to think of, especially in playoffs.
I respect it. I do respect that. For me, the one big guy that I'd like to avoid this week is James Conner. I know he's coming off a nice 2 touchdown game again this week, but the Bears defense has been very good against running backs this year. And the way they do get beat is in the passing game, but James Conner isn't a pass catching back for the Cardinals. He's not being used that way. So I'd look to avoid James Conner. Again, you can make do avoiding Brian Robinson. Jonathan Taylor does scare me a lot because he's coming off injury. He's playing the Falcons, their tough run defense. So I would have questionable marks on Jonathan Taylor as well that I don't really want to go back and play him first game. But again, you might be forced to, because if you're starting, let's say, you're starting Jalen Warren, Jerome Ford this week, you might want to just go out there and put in a Jonathan Taylor in fantasy this week because of the upside that he offers. But if you're looking at the grouping here, he's probably lower on my list because he's coming off injury this week for fantasy.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go over these are the borderline players at this point. These are the last tier in terms of, these are the players that could be start worthy for your team. And I know there's one name on there that really looks familiar, but that's how I personally feel about him. And that's how he's been ranked. It's not even just me. Expert consensus ranking on Austin Eckler has been down, but you're looking at guys that are flex running backs: Austin Eckler, Javonte Williams, Devin Singletary, the Ty Chandler, Alexander Madison. Now, Ty Chandler could maybe jump up into the next tier because he's a solo guy this week, as long as Madison's out. But you have the Najee, Jerome Ford, Gus Edwards, Jalen Warren, Deontay Foreman, and again, Zamir White if there was no Josh Jacobs, which I think Josh Jacobs is leaning towards coming back this week. So, of this grouping here, does someone stand out that you want to play? I think we've already mentioned you do like Ty Chandler this week. Maybe Austin Eckler. That's a big one. Let's talk about Austin Eckler here. How do you feel about Eckler this week?
I think it's a brutal matchup against Buffalo. You have 2 teams that are going in. You have one team that absolutely needs to win this game in Buffalo, and you have another team that is hapless looking for the future. So I don't know how much, compete there really is going to be in the Chargers locker room. It's tough. It's really a hard decision. I also don't know if Austin Eckler is 100%. He doesn't look the same. He doesn't look right. So I think he could volume his way to again a 10, 12 point game, but that's like max. I mean, that's max with Easton Stick, with no with no Keenan Allen. I mean, how good is this offense really going to look against Buffalo? I think that Buffalo goes in, takes care of business, reasserts himself as, one of the contenders and moves on to the next week. So I would struggle to put Austin Eckler in my lineups. I'd have to be in a pretty desperate. I would put, Ty Chandler in over him. I'd play Gus Edwards over him. I would play Devonta Williams, Devin Singletary. I'd play a lot of these names on this list specifically. Forget the names that we already talked about. Just this list, I would play a bunch of them over Austin Eckler.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I kind of don't really want to play Austin Eckler. Like we saw last week is that you saw other guys get involved. The team, I know the coaching changes has switched. So that's the only thing that's getting me intrigued about Austin Eckler is because, all right, coaching staff's different now, but Kellen Moore is still running this offense. He's still calling plays for this offense. So it's not like the offense is going to change that much. Maybe they want to just throw the ball to their stars and get some crowd popping. But, Kellen Moore is going to do what Kellen Moore wants to do on that offense. He's going to continue to play the game he wants to play with their scheme here. And we saw Isaiah Spiller, Josh Kelly get involved really early in the game last week. And this is before the blowout started. This was early on that Austin Eckler wasn't playing his full workload. Isaiah Spiller came in and got a lot of work early on. They clearly want to see what they have in their youth here. Austin Eckler is on his way out of probably LA after this year. So for me, I'm going to sit him. And I'll take that risk sitting him this week because I'd rather go with an upside play. Like, again, I think Devin Singletary is a decent upside play this week. I think, Ty Chandler, if he gets all the work, I think Deontay Foreman, I know it's really hard to say it, but there's upside with him in a great matchup this week here against the Cardinals. And some of those guys like that, like I'd rather play them over Austin Eckler. So this tier has a lot of question marks. The Steelers running backs, great matchup, but I don't want to play them. I have no interest in playing the Steelers running backs this week because it's just, who's going to be the main guy? And then are they really going to move the ball with Mason Rudolph? Gus Edwards got a tough matchup. Jerome Ford, he hasn't really been playing that great as of late. So this tier kind of just sucks. It's not the greatest. You're throwing these guys out there because you lost a lot of injured players this season. So,
yeah. Yep.
All right, let's go to the next tier. This is the last of the RB tier. It's the desperate RBs, the backup running backs. You have the Tajay Spears, Jarrett McKinnon, Antonio Gibson, the Chase Browns, the Zach Charbonnet, Roshan Johnson, A.J. Dillon, Rico Dowlings, Justice Hill, Jamal Williams, Kenneth Walker, Samaje Perine, Kareem Hunt, and Isaiah Spiller. Again, these are backup running backs here. You might be forced to. Maybe you're in a deeper man league, dynasty league here. Real quick, John, give me two quick names that could stand out for you this week.
Chase Brown, I think we talked about him on Monday's show. I think he does have a little bit of standalone value. They use him in the passing game. He has some sort of electricity to his game. So I do like Chase Brown. He's been getting worked in ever since he's been back. So I think I like him. I'm trying not to start him in my, semifinals, but I do like the player if you're absolutely backed into a corner. And then Justice Hill, just because of the injury to Keaton Mitchell, I think there's gonna be some work for him. He's been getting plenty of snaps, but not a lot of touches. I think that changes because clearly they don't like Gus Edwards in the passing game for the running back. So, Justice Hill could take some screens and stuff and do a little bit of damage in some PPR formats. So those two are the interesting ones. The other ones are all sort of total prayers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Chase Brown is somebody that I would consider in lineups because of the upside that he offers for this team here. They're going to need to run the ball. Good matchup against the Steelers. Samaje Perine does kind of stand out for me this week because the way that we saw last week with the Patriots and the Chiefs, that they gave up a ton in the receiving game of running backs here. And Samaje Perine is no, athletic beast, but he's pretty good when he gets the ball. And again, he's more of a Hail Mary kind of throw because I think he could end up having a really good day in the passing game. Like I won't be surprised if he ends up with a 12-point fantasy day this week. So a couple questions in the chat. Parker Gibbs, Jacobs, Ridley, Ford, Javante, Williams. I guess we're picking one at the flex.
I would assume one at flex for PPR, and that to me is Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like that's Davante Adams that's a tough one, but I still think there's just way more security in Jahmyr Gibbs. But
yeah, Gibbs, he's been playing. He's RB3 on the season. If not Gibbs, then Josh Jacobs if he plays. That's how I feel.
Really, I would do Adams in a PPR format before Jacobs.
Dylan said, "What up, guys? Happy holidays! Made it to the next round of my playoffs. Congratulations! One league I've already won 500. Love that for getting second. A lot due to y'all advice. We appreciate.
I love that. Thanks, Dylan.
We love that. We love that. We absolutely
makes me happy.
We will get to your questions in just a minute here. All right, so let's get to the next tier real quick here. These are the wide receiver one locks at wide receiver. The Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Amon St. Brown, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, Deebo Samuels, DJ Moore, and Cooper Kupp here. These are players that are basically wide receivers that should be locked in your lineups this week here. Again, John, is there anyone that, you're the lowest on out of this grouping here?
Lowest I'd be on, I mean, they're all pretty high up my rankings. Maybe Pittman just based off the injury.
That's fair.
But that's kind of my only concern. I do love the matchup against the Bucks, and he's been getting crazy usage and crazy volume. So that's my only real concern on this list. Again, DJ Moore's looked great, and he's got an awesome matchup. Cooper Kupp has been good lately, and Matt Stafford's on fire. It's a tough matchup, but I still think Cooper Kupp's you're not sitting him. There's no one on this list really that raises any concern outside of the Pittman injury. If he's not 100%, but I don't see a world where you pivot away from him if he's active.
That's true. Yeah, and to me, Pittman does probably have the toughest of all the matchups this weekend, so he could be the lowest on this list. But again, all these guys should almost be in your lineup. So most of them are all seeing they're all seeing double-digit targets each week, or they're just making big plays week in and week out right now in fantasy, and that's what you want as a locked-in wide receiver one in fantasy. So, All right, let's get to Dylan's got a lot of questions, so we're going to get these first two real quick here. All PPR leagues start one RB in a flex. Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard, Jaden Reed, or Isaiah Likely. Got McBride as well. So which of those? So
he has McBride. So I'm assuming he's playing McBride. So he's going to flex Likely.
So Mixon or Pollard first. Let's start with the RB. Mixon or Pollard this week for you?
I would take.
I'm going Mixon personally.
Oh boy,
starting Mixon this week.
Yeah, I think I'm starting Mixon too. The Pittsburgh matchup doesn't scare me that much. Miami's defense had a bad day, but can be good. I don't know, how unbelievable Pittsburgh. To be honest, I would play Mixon and flex Pollard. I'd do those two guys. Yeah, that's how I would do it.
I'm okay with that. I like that actually. Reed's got a tough matchup. He is dealing with a toe injury, so I don't know if I want to play him in this tough matchup. Likely, is interesting because you saw what he's done the last few weeks now. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather take the sure thing with Tony Pollard and his workload than hopefully Isaiah Likely gets 6 targets and ends up having a touchdown this week. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Broncos defense or Packers defense?
I mean, they're both great starts. I'm going to say Green Bay defense just because I'm a New England guy and I don't want to pick against New England, but they're both awesome starts because we know New England's not going to score a lot of points and probably throw at least 2 picks. Carolina's not going to score a lot of points and
Carolina's
probably
been awful.
Carolina's not going to score a lot of points and probably have 2 picks. So
I'm going Green Bay on this.
Yeah, so you're good. I mean, you're solid either way. I'm going to say Green Bay just because I'm a homer.
Exactly. All right. So let's go to the next tier, and then we'll go back to more questions. All right. This is the almost wide receiver ones. They all have elite upside in their game. They're just, again, maybe they're just not locked in like the other guys are consistently right now. And you're looking at the Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Brandon Ayuk, Rishi Rice, Puka Nacua, Keenan Allen's out, so you can forget about him. Chris Olave is playing tonight, but we're not going to talk about Chris Olave because he's playing tonight. T. Higgins, Devontae Adams, Devonta Smith, and Jalen Waddle here. Of this group here, let's not talk about the group in general. Let's talk about Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, real quick, has been really bad in fantasy the last 4 weeks now. Are you playing him this week? You just have to play him because the matchup is so good.
The matchup's really good, and that is definitely my cause for pause. The matchup is really good. You know, there is the squeaky wheel narrative that he should see an uptick in targets, but I mean, the offense has just been running the ball a ton, and James Cook's moving the ball on the ground. So, you know, but it's such a weird situation because it's not like there's anyone else in Buffalo stepping up. Dalton Kincaid's banged up. He just goosed. Gabe Davis is an absolute disappearing act. And yet Stephon Diggs still can't get 10 plus targets. It's just interesting. So I would play Stephon Diggs because there is always the chance that he gets 15 targets and 140 and 2 score. Like, it's just Stephon Diggs. He could do it. Matchup's great against the Chargers. Their secondary is abysmal. But I understand the fears. I certainly understand because he's had, you know, what is it, 5 weeks in a row now where it's not fun. You know, you're talking single digit fantasy points, single digit targets.
Yeah.
But you have to elite, you know, wide receiver. I mean, he's elite athleticism. You have to kind of bet on it.
He's at the bottom of this list for me personally.
Yeah, he's definitely low on this list. But when we get to the next list or the list after, I'm not putting him in those guys above
we'll talk
him.
about some of those players and see if we compare. Yeah, but
he's the bottom of this grouping for me for sure. Like, he's the bottom of this grouping, which 100%. Is kind of crazy to say.
It is crazy to say because he should be in the next group, but right now he's not playing that way. But all these guys have great upside here. I think you could start basically everyone here. No one really has a terrible matchup this week. I mean, yeah, you have a lot of good matchups. You know, Devontae Adams against the Chiefs. I don't know, but like, he should be fine. Everyone else, like, they're good matchups this week. You should be pretty okay with this grouping here. So we have another question from Dylan here. Second league, start 1 RB, 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. So let's do the RBs real quick. James Conner, Jerome Ford, or Devin Singletary.
Oh man,
I'm picking Devin Singletary this week.
Yeah, I would. Oh man, that's tough. Honestly, Cleveland's defense is no joke. I'll do James Conner. I'll do James Conner. I do like James Conner. He's solid enough. Every time he gets work, he seems fine. He's pretty safe. Okay. I think Chicago's a tough matchup, but not an impossible matchup. And Devin Singletary without CJ Stroud. I mean, I know he did really well last week, but I just don't know how this offense is going to move against Cleveland.
I respect it. Ayuk, Waddle, or Reed for 1 wide receiver. Ayuk for me. I'm starting Ayuk.
Yeah, it's probably Ayuk for me as well.
And I'm probably starting Waddle in the flex.
Yep, that's actually exactly how I would do that.
All right, so
either that's probably exactly how I would do that.
Singletary and your RB, depends how you feel, and then definitely Ayuk and Waddle at wide receiver 1 flex. And then Broncos defense or Bills defense?
Both great starts again. I think Easton. I was going to say, you say who?
I'm going to take the Broncos because they're home.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, they're both great starts. I'll take the Bills because I think Easton Stick is going to make some mistakes. I think he's going to make some pretty bad mistakes, and the Bills can capitalize.
Exactly. All right, let's get to another slide here real quick here. These are the borderline wide receiver 2. These are players flirting with the top 24 finish this week. You know, they all have, they're all decent plays. They're all good, but they don't have the same floor play as maybe some of the other guys do. These guys kind of hot and cold at times this season. You're looking at Garrett Wilson, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, Nico Collins injured. Chris Godwin's also injured. Drake London, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison here. Give me 2 guys real quick of this grouping that you really like in fantasy this week.
That I really like. Yes. If Nico Collins plays, I do like Nico Collins. I think he's just been so solid with so much volume, but that's with CJ Stroud. So I get why you might be hesitant there. And then, man, Cortland Sutton again, but the Patriots defense is no joke. They're good. I don't know if there's really upside there. I'll go maybe damn it, Amari Cooper, I guess. I do think Amari Cooper is Joe Flacco can sling it. He's got the eyes for him. Houston's tough, but not impossible in the secondary. He'll probably see the Derek Stingley treatment, but I'm still willing to take that over some of these other names.
Yeah, I know. I respect it. I like a lot of guys here. I like Calvin Ridley this week. I think he could bounce back against a bad Bucs defense. He's played the Bucs plenty of times over his career, and he's done well. Jordan Addison. I like Jordan Addison to kind of have another strong game here. Detroit's secondary is terrible. I expect that the game to be somewhat of a shootout. Drake London this week, honestly, he kind of jumps into me because Tyler Heineke's playing. I mean, the matchup is good against the Colts. I think he could have a really big game this week. Again, Nico and Chris Godwin, I mean, they almost feel like you have to throw them in lineups right now, but the injuries do scare me off. I'd rather go after some of the guys I've just mentioned rather than go with Chris Godwin and Nico because I don't know how healthy they are. Maybe Nico is probably okay, but Chris Godwin might scare me.
Back-to-back limited practices for Nico Collins, so that's a pretty good sign that he's going to play.
Tomorrow will be big.
Tomorrow will be big. Tomorrow will absolutely be big. If he gets a full practice in, then it's all wheels up.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you on the Drake London take as well. That's not a bad. Yeah. That's a sharp move with Tyler Heinicke under center.
Yeah, all these guys here, they're pretty much decent plays as a flex. You could probably put him as a flex in a 2 wide receiver league. They're probably decent wide receiver 3s in a 3 wide receiver league. You should be pretty fine with a lot of these guys. Yep. Question for Marco here. Puka, 1 point PPR flex. Puka, Tony Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Noah Brown.
Puka.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel like it's
in PPR. I want to play Puka.
I feel like PPR, yeah, it's Puka. I mean, and then my next would be Pollard. You actually ranked it. You actually wrote it how I would rank it. Puka, Pollard, Jonathan Taylor, Noah Brown.
Yeah.
I would play
Noah Brown ahead of I would put him ahead of Jonathan Taylor if there is no Nico.
Okay, yeah. No Nico, yeah, that's fair.
But Puka for sure.
But I'm playing Puka, yeah, I'm playing Puka too.
All right, defense. Looks like he says, I want to say that's Browns or Chiefs defense.
Browns
or would you rather have the Broncos or the Packers defense?
I would much rather have Broncos or Packers, and I would probably
Packers.
I'm going back to the well, and I'm going to say Packers.
Yeah, agreed. I'd pick up the Packers and drop either one. Browns probably. So, all right. Over to the next grouping here, we have the flex wide receivers at this point, or wide receiver 3s, whatever. You have the Tyler Lockett's, the Jaden Reed, the Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Jacoby Myers, Brandon Cooks, Christian Watson, Josh Downs, Noah Brown, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, and Adam Thielen. Give me 2 players in this grouping here that you think are decent flex plays this week.
I would, it's crazy. I don't want to pick 2. I don't want to pick 2 commanders, but Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel, I think, are both flex worthy. I think they both could be in a lineup and be fine. And then, I do like Josh Downs. I got a soft spot for him. I think he's a very talented wide receiver. I know he hasn't been getting the targets of late. But I think he's another one that you could flex. So it'd probably be those 3. I'm not in love with Deontay Johnson because I don't have faith in Mason Rudolph. Tyler Lockett just keeps losing work to JSN. Jaden Reed's got a toe injury. It was originally reported as turf toe. And so I don't even know if he's going to go this week. And then Adam Thielen, I want nothing to do with. Joshua Palmer, I want nothing to do with. I want nothing to do with those guys. Noah Brown actually is pretty interesting if Collins doesn't play, but I've, back-to-back limited practices for Nico, so I do think Nico is probably going to go.
Right.
So that drops Noah Brown down quite a bit. But if Nico doesn't go, then Noah's a solid flex, really solid.
Yeah. I do like Tyler Lockett's style. I like him with Geno Smith. The Titans secondary has not been great this last month or so now. I think that he'll have better play with Geno Smith back on the field and playing. I do like Curtis Samuel. I know the matchup's tough. I don't like Terry McLaurin as much, but I do like Curtis Samuel in the slot. I think that he's shown us this year that he can see 8 or 9 targets and be able to produce in fantasy. That is where most of the production is coming from. The Commanders' receiving core is from Curtis Samuel in the slot, and it's been working this year a lot. Noah Brown, solid. Like him too. Everyone else, again, they're okay. I don't hate Deontay Johnson. He's fine. None of these guys really shout big upside this week. That's what this group is. They don't really shout big upside. So,
no.
Yeah. We got a question from a master. Here we go. What's up, guys? 2 questions. T. Higgins or Calvin Ridley? Of course, only if T. Law plays. Of course. Probably T. Higgins for me.
Yeah, I like T. I like T. Higgins. Jamar Chase out.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to have to move the ball.
Yeah. Colts defense, Broncos defense, or Texans defense?
Broncos. You got the Patriots.
I agree. Broncos defense for sure.
Take advantage of bad teams. Take advantage.
All right, here we got the next grouping of wide receivers. These are borderline plays basically at this point. This is, and you might play these wise more in dynasty leagues, but these are the basic, the back end of these are the only ones I want to start. And you're looking at JSN, George Pickens, Odell Beckham, Rashard Rashid, Gabe Davis, Zay Jones, Demario Douglas, Romeo Doubs, Tyler Boyd, Wanda Robinson, and Marquise Brown here. Now, again, give me one player that really stands out that, should maybe be a little higher, someone that you do like this week.
JSN. I think JSN should be a little bit higher. Like, I would rank him over Tyler Lockett. I do like the matchup. He's really started to come into his own the past sort of 3-4 weeks. So I like JSN as a play. The other names to me don't scream a lot of upside, but JSN, he's a rookie. He's fast, super talented. He could hit a big play and then the rest is gravy. So, I'd be okay and comfortable starting JSN as a wide receiver 3 or a flex on my team.
I respect it. JSN's definitely interesting. Don't hate him at all. I also like Zay Jones a lot this week, especially if T-Law does play. Broncos secondary, like I said, have been really bad this season. Zay Jones seen like double-digit targets without Christian Watson. Kirk Cousins. I can't talk tonight. Christian Kirk not on the field. Zay Jones has looked not great, but he's seeing the targets, and eventually the targets do fall when you have a good matchup. So I do like him a lot. I don't want anything to do with Marquise Brown, nothing with Gabe Davis, nothing with George Pickens. Again, Romeo Doubs is a touchdown machine. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's not good. Demario Douglas is fine, not great. Tyler Boyd is fine, not great. Wanda Robinson has a great matchup, but I don't want to trust a Giants wide receiver. Rashard Rashid's playing tonight, not really worrying about him. Odell, it's a tough matchup. I don't really want to play him. Pickens has just been a disappointment with Deontay Johnson on the field.
Yeah.
All right. And the last wide receiver slide, real quick here. Give me one wide receiver you're desperate to play for someone on their team. You're looking at Jerry Jeudy, Jameson Williams, Elijah Moore, Jonathan Mingo, Quentin Johnson, Darius Slay, John Dotson, Devonian Wicks, Alec Pierce, Darnell Mooney, Parker Washington.
Man, if you are absolutely desperate, I don't hate Parker Washington because Zay Jones, didn't practice today. There is a strong possibility he doesn't play, and Parker Washington slots right in as that number 2 wide receiver in a good matchup. So he is one that the only one that I would maybe be paying attention to with a small little shout out to Jameson Williams. But everybody else, I would be in semifinals week. I would be bummed out if I have to start any of these other guys.
Right. I think for me, it's Darius Slayton. This is the situation where you're desperate and you need a big play, and I think Darius Slayton could offer that for you this week. The Eagles secondary has looked terrible. We saw what the Seattle Steve was able to do with not a great quarterback. I think Tommy DeVito is better than Drew Lock. And so I think Darius Slay has been decent at times this year. I think this could be a game where he gets kind of going a little bit and maybe ends up having a pretty decent game. Everyone else, though, it's man, you're really shooting for stuff. Wicks could be interesting if there's no Jaden Reed and there's no Christian Watson. Wicks has been pretty solid. Yep. He could be a guy then at that point. I know the matchup's not great, but he's been targeted a lot and seeing big yardage from it, so he'd be interesting as well.
Sure, that's a good name to bring up as well.
Yeah. All right. Now we're the tight ends real quick. Must start tight ends. These are no questions. I don't think we can have a bad question about Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, Trey McBride, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, and George Kittle. I mean, I don't think you have anything bad to say. You start all these guys if you own them, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
Tight ends are tough at this point. And if you don't have one of these 7, your season's up and down. But these guys have been consistent as of late, at least, for sure. Definitely as of late.
Yeah.
You want these guys in your lineup this week here. No questions. That even doesn't matter about the matchup. All right. Now we have the upside tight end ones, but the
I like that upside, but
Isaiah Likely, Dalton Kincaid, Dallas Goedert, Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet, and Darren Waller all have decent matchups. I mean, they're tight end ones, but they don't have the same upside. Is there someone here that you don't like? Let's talk about that.
I don't like Dalton Kincaid. I think being banged up really hurt. I do think that him. He still played a ton of snaps, but only saw 2 targets. The Bills seem to be moving the ball on the ground right now, so he's one that I don't love. And Dalton Schultz as well is another one. It's just hard to trust with Case Keenum back there, in the chance that Nico comes back. It's just, I don't know.
If Nico comes back, Schultz definitely.
What are 4 targets from Case Keenum going to do for you if you're Dalton Schultz? So those would be the 2 out of this list that make me the most nervous.
Yeah. Dallas Goedert does make me nervous. He just really hasn't been that great this year for fantasy. I think he's just got 2 games over 10 fantasy points. Like, he doesn't really usually you're like, oh, Dallas Goedert, he's got upside play, but he just really hasn't shown us upside play this season. It's like, he'll get 3 for 40 and that's his game. That's what he's been doing this year. The touchdowns aren't really there. They're not throwing the ball to him in the red zone. So it's like, for me, someone like that is also someone I'm trying to avoid. If Nico Collins plays, Dalton Schultz definitely drops to that level for sure. So, and then we're on the tight ends. Oh, look who decided to show up last minute.
Jim, somebody.
Sorry, yo.
No, you're fine. Just in time for the tail end of tight ends.
Oh,
the last slide.
Like tail ends.
So we're on the last slide of the night, guys. This is the tight ends for week 16 here. These are basically all matchup dependent tight ends. Basically, if you don't have one of the top guys, this is what you kind of have here. You're looking at Taysom Hill, Hunter Henry, Pat Freiermuth, Tucker Kraft, Gerald Everett, Tanner Hudson, Tyler Higbee, Logan Thomas, Chico Conqua, Tyler Conklin, Kate Audit, and Kyle Pitts. The mouthful I just said in my mouth. But Jibs, you can start us off on our last slide here. Give me a tight end or 2 that you think can be worthy of a play this week in fantasy.
Ooh.
Oh, you're muted. I think you just muted yourself as you were talking.
He didn't want to get the words out.
What?
Since Luke Musgrave hasn't been fully activated from IR yet, I'm definitely interested in Tucker Kraft. Like his, the Packers have been playing up and down as of lately, but he's been a consistent cog in the offense, especially given the fact that Christian Watson hasn't practiced. You have issues with Jalen Reed as well, so he could be a top target for the Packers, like Tucker Kraft.
I like that.
All right. John, you want to have someone there?
Hunter Henry for me is someone that would be interesting. I know he's banged up right now, so that's a cause of concern. 2 missed practices in a row. So definitely pay attention to that. But ever since Bailey Zappi's come in, he's kind of turned it on of late. He seems to be kind of the safety valve in this offense right now. He seems to be the guy who moves the sticks for him. Does have a little bit of touchdown upside, and the Broncos secondary. The Broncos secondary is tough, but not impossible to beat. So he's one that would interest me in this collection of people.
I respect it. Pat Freiermuth, I mean, the matchup is good. He had 100 yards last time. I know it's a different quarterback, different situation now, but he was someone who played well. Bengals are terrible against tight ends. Hunter Henry, if he plays, I mean, the matchup's there. I know it's hard to want to trust him, but the matchup is there. Broncos are the worst team against tight ends this year. Everyone else is okay. Pitts, I don't really want to play. Kate Auden has a good matchup, but I don't really want to trust him. Logan Thomas has been bad. Tyler Higbee's been bad. Tanner Hudson, if you're looking for 6 points, man, will get you 6 points no matter what. Man, he isn't solid with 6 points. And Taysom Hill's a wild card. You're starting Taysom Hill and hoping for the best with him.
Wild card. He is a wild card. That's a good way to describe him.
He sure is a wild card, that's for sure. But yeah. So that is our show for this week. Sorry, Jibs. We kind of came up here at the end though. But that's okay. That's okay. Well, it's still next week. So there's next week still. You can join in then at that point. But so so that is our show tonight, guys. Hopefully you guys let us know if you like the new format. If you want us to go back to the matchups, we could do that. Not a problem. I figured this way you'd see a lot more players, a lot more talking about who to start between which positions here, rather than us just saying start, sit, and different things like that. So, Coach Shibbs, I'll give you the floor. Anything you want to say? Is there a play you want to mention, or is there anything you want to mention in general?
Sorry for my lateness. I wish everyone well in their semifinal matchups, and I'm praying for this Thursday night football to be a high-scoring game with a lot of pretty good fantasy pieces involved. So, that's all I want to say.
Love it, Coach John.
I want to start off by saying, screw you, Coach Steve. We are in semifinals in our dynasty, and I'm playing you, so I don't want you to win. I don't want Kyron Williams to have a good game tonight, even though it's inevitable that he will. But thank you to all the listeners. It's we're in playoff times. It's been a fun season, so set those lineups, hit subscribe, and let's win some titles. It's time to take home the hardware.
Well, Coach John, I have Kyron Williams going against Coach Steve, so
okay, all right. So then, all right, I don't feel too bad then. So
I got a lot of different.
It's a triangle of hatred right now.
Yes, I play both of you in some league or not this week, so this is going to be some fun shit talking on.
Monday's going to be crazy. Monday's going to be crazy. So. Oh yeah, Monday's Christmas.
I'll just send a nice text when I win. You'll know it when you see it. So, but yeah, we want to thank all the listeners for tuning in tonight. Whether you ask us some questions tonight, whether you're listening live on our YouTube channel at the Fantasy Coaches, or if you're listening afterwards, if you're listening over on X or Twitter, whatever it is, Facebook. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, we appreciate this entire season. Has been a lot of fun. We've enjoyed doing this. Obviously, we've helped people make it all this far, which we enjoy hearing about. So if we've helped you out, let us know. We just love to hear that your success is part of our success, and that's what we want to do. As you see, we're all in semifinal matchups of some of our leagues, so we know what we're doing a little bit. So, but we appreciate you guys all for tuning in tonight. Enjoy the holidays with your family and friends, or whoever you spend it with, and we'll see you guys back here to talk about championship week next week. So, good luck tonight. Good luck this weekend. Take care, guys. And everyone have a good one.
Christmas.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple.